Elite Facts presents
5 freaky paranormal events that the police witnessed.
5.
Soul collector. Please bear with us while we explain this one, as we know it's going to cause some controversy. However, this is something that was reported by the police themselves. Lieutenant Frank Mara, a now retired police officer, was one of the officers tasked with sifting through the rubble of the World Trade Center towers in September of 2001, after the terrorist events that had occurred. It was only in 2013, while conducting interviews for a book related to the infamous incident that shook the world called Hallowed Ground, that he remembered encountering something paranormal during his long hours of work at the site. One of the detectives who was also being interviewed for the book mentioned hearing about a ghostly tale of an old Red Cross worker that appeared to some of the officers while they were working. This woman apparently tried to serve the officers on duty coffee and sandwiches, as this was the Red Cross duty during World War II. Upon hearing the detective talk about this, Mara remembered seeing a black silhouette of a woman dressed in a Red Cross uniform appearing several times before him while he worked. She held a tray of sandwiches and disappeared every time he strained to get a better look at her. Several police officers who were also stationed at the site after the attacks claimed to have seen large shadows and black masses among the debris. After seeing a medium about his experience and hearing that he may have witnessed a soul collector guiding spirits to the hereafter, Mara truly believes that this is what he saw. 4. Silbury Hill beings. Unfortunately, we don't have a name for the officer who reportedly witnessed the paranormal events of this one. However, this incident is fairly well known. An unnamed off-duty police sergeant was driving along a road near Silbury Hill in July 2009 when he saw what looked like 3 forensic officers dressed in white overalls standing in a field and staring at something on the ground. While stopping to investigate, he noticed that all 3 of the figures he was seeing were well over 2 meters or 6 feet tall and had blonde hair. While approaching them, he also states that he heard what sounded like static electricity reverberating throughout the field. When these officers noticed him, they took to their heels and sprinted out of sight faster than any human would be able to. According to the sergeant in command, the 3 beings were inspecting a massive crop circle in the field that had appeared a few days prior to their encounter with the real police. After experiencing further paranormal activity, the sergeant decided that the most logical thing to do would be to contact UFO experts, which led to crop circle researchers Andrew Russell and Colin Andrews investigating the incident on behalf of the scared officer on duty. Hey, can you honestly blame them? If you see weird occurrences like that, you'd be scared too. Anyway, the Wiltshire police station had no comment on the sighting, stating that it was a personal matter because the sergeant was off duty at the time of the incident. Russell and Andrews, however, are convinced that the policeman saw something out of this world.
3.
Enfield Poltergeist. Back in 1977, an unassuming house in Enfield made a huge splash in the news. Tabloids went absolutely crazy after hearing the events that happened at this local household. However, it wasn't because of a crime or missing child, which at the time was unfortunately common, but instead, Peggy Hodgson claimed that her house had been infiltrated by an evil entity. Hodgson claimed that her daughter, Janet, told her that her brother's beds were shaking and vibrating. The next evening, Hodgson heard a loud noise coming from the children's bedroom. Deciding to take the investigation into her own hands, she saw with her own eyes a chest of drawers moving by itself. When trying to move this piece of furniture back to its rightful place, she and the children were unable to do so, stating that it was almost like something was keeping it in place. In addition to all of this, there was a strange knocking throughout the house, and Janet seemed to be able to levitate above her bed. The case eventually drew the attention of famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. There was a lot of talk and accusations at the time, with many people believing that Hodgson and her children made the whole story up. However, at the same time that these arguments and conversations about the validity of the Enfield haunting were taking place, W.P. Carolyn Heaps signed an affidavit confirming that she herself had witnessed a paranormal event at Hodgson's home after being called on to help the family. Her statement says that she witnessed a chair hovering just off the floor before it moved a little over a meter or 4 feet on its own. Afterwards, the police left the house, stating that they could not assist the family since there was no perpetrator breaking the law. Whether true or not, the events in the Enfield home were featured in the hit horror movie The Conjuring 2, which also features a scene where the police officer witnesses the chair moving on its own.
2.
The Inmate and the Devil. Now, this one is freaky. Back in 1983, inmate Don Decker was on compassionate leave so he could attend his grandfather's funeral and was staying with family friends in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. When Decker was washing his hands in an upstairs bathroom one evening, he suddenly became dazed and collapsed on the bathroom floor. When he eventually came downstairs after the fall, Bob Kiefer was the first to ask what had happened to him, since he gained deep scratches on his wrist from the fall. Decker told Kiefer about collapsing in the bathroom and claimed to have had a vision of an old man wearing what appeared to be a crown. Not too long after this incident, water began to drip from the roof and the walls. Kiefer called his landlord, thinking that the pipes on the property may have burst or be leaking somewhere. However, they realized that the pipes were located on the other side of the house and were not faulty. At this point, the water inside the house was falling down like rain, as well as leaking upwards from the floor as if there was a flash flood happening. Glancing at Decker, the two men saw that he seemed to be in a trance-like state, and they immediately called the police. As time went on, things ended up getting worse and worse. It's been said that after they made the phone call to the police, Decker was said to have been levitating off the floor and being flung around the room and against the walls, all while new scratches were appearing on his body. Officer John Bojan and Officer Richard Wolbert arrived at the house. While Bojan believed something paranormal was happening, Wolbert was not convinced and left the house without filing a report. The next day, two different officers defied Wolbert's orders and visited the house to see if they could figure out what was happening. William Davies and John Rundle claimed to have witnessed a gold cross burning Decker's skin, as well as the man being lifted off the ground and thrown across the room. After taking him to a hospital to tend to the wounds he gained from this paranormal attack, Decker was taken back to prison. After this, some of the police officers on duty described water traveling up his cell walls and water with the consistency of silicone appearing on a supervisor's shirt. A plumber was summoned to the station house, but he became visibly upset and left right away after seeing what was happening inside Decker's cell. Most of the officers are fully convinced that Decker was possessed by the devil, giving him supernatural powers. This story is just downright terrifying.
1.
The Capitol Theater. So this incident is infamous with those who live in the Salt Lake area. The story was reported by Dave Murphy, the town sheriff. Prior to this incident, Sheriff Murphy didn't believe in ghosts. However, once he started working security at Salt Lake City's Capitol Theater, his opinions on ghosts changed drastically and quickly. He states that he saw dark shadows moving through the walls, doors slamming shut by themselves in the empty building, and of course, specters and other paranormal creatures began to reveal themselves in full view of Murphy as they all congregated on the large open stage. Things got scary when the spirits decided they wanted Murphy out of the building. As you probably expect, they physically attacked him just to get him out. He's not the only person to experience strange things in the theater, as even staff members who worked there during the day also came across these paranormal entities, one of whom they suspect is a 17-year-old usher who died in a fire that occurred in that very building back in 1947.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.